A strange encounter. Jack Trenton had been flying through space for weeks. His mission was simple: explore uncharted planets and report back to Earth. But this time, something felt different. His ship had picked up a strange signal from a distant planet, one that had never been explored before. The signal was weak, almost like a whisper, but it had led him here. As he landed, his heart raced with both excitement and fear. The planet was silent, almost too quiet. The sky was a strange shade of purple, and the ground beneath his boots felt soft, like moss. Large, broken structures surrounded him, tall and ancient, like the ruins of some lost civilization. Jack looked around, gripping his laser pistol tightly, unsure of what he might find. He took a few cautious steps, scanning the area with his handheld device. No signs of life, but the signal was getting stronger. Jack followed it, pushing through thick vines and rocks. His ship's scanners hadn't picked up anything dangerous, but he knew better than to trust machines completely. This was deep space. Anything could happen. As he ventured deeper into the ruins, he suddenly felt a presence. It was a strange feeling, like someone was watching him. He spun around, but there was nothing behind him, just the eerie silence of the planet. His heart pounded harder. Then, without warning, a soft glow appeared in front of him. The air seemed to shimmer, and out of the light stepped a figure. Jack's eyes widened as he saw her. She was unlike anything he had ever seen before. She looked human, but there was something distinctly alien about her. Her skin had a slight blue tint, and her eyes glowed softly in the fading light. Her long silver hair flowed behind her as if it were moving on its own. She wore a form-fitting outfit that seemed made of some kind of strange, shiny material. For a moment, they just stared at each other. Jack didn't know what to say. His hand hovered over his pistol, but he didn't reach for it. Something about her wasn't threatening. At least, not yet. Finally, she spoke, but not with her mouth. The voice was inside his head, clear and powerful. "You will breed me now, human." Jack blinked, sure he had heard her wrong. His mind raced. Did she really say what he thought she did? "I'm sorry." "What?" Jack stammered, taking the step back. "You heard me," she said again, her voice calm but commanding. "You will breed me now." Jack's heart pounded as he tried to understand. Was this some kind of joke? A test? The alien woman took a step closer, her glowing eyes locking onto his. Jack felt a strange pull, a mix of fear and curiosity. "I don't think that's how things work," Jack managed to say, his voice shaky. But deep down, he knew he was in over his head. Whatever this alien wanted, it was not something he had ever been trained for. The planet had been silent when he arrived, but now it felt alive with danger. And Jack was at the center of it. Lathera's story. Jack stood frozen, his mind racing. The alien girl, Lathera, was still staring at him, her glowing eyes unblinking. Her words echoed in his head. "You will breed me now, human." It didn't make sense. Jack had traveled to many planets, met strange creatures, but nothing like this. He took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. "Why are you saying this? What do you want from me?" Lathera didn't answer right away. She tilted her head slightly, as if she were considering something. Then, with a graceful wave of her hand, she motioned for Jack to follow her. Against his better judgment, he did. She led him deeper into the ruins, through a narrow passage lined with symbols and carvings Jack didn't recognize. The air grew warmer, and there was a faint hum, like the planet itself was alive. Finally, they entered a large open chamber. At its center was a glowing pool of liquid, shimmering with strange colors. It looked almost magical. Lathera turned to face Jack, her expression softening. "My people are dying," she began, her voice still echoing in his mind. "We are the last of our kind. Our ability to reproduce has been damaged by a great war, long before you humans even existed. Now, we can only survive by mixing with other species." Jack's confusion deepened. He had never heard of anything like this. "So, you want me to help you?" spy. He struggled to finish the sentence, his face turning red. Lathera nodded, her face serious. Yes, we need your DNA to ensure our survival. Without it, my people will disappear forever. Jack rubbed the back of his neck, feeling more uncomfortable by the second. He didn't know what to think. This was beyond anything he had ever imagined. Lathera wasn't just asking him for help, she was asking him to save an entire species. But this was too much, too fast. I'm just a guy, a simple explorer, Jack said, shaking his head. You're asking for something I'm not sure I can do. It's not that simple for humans. Lathera's eyes glowed brighter for a moment. You misunderstand, Jack. This isn't about love or desire. It's about survival. If we don't reproduce soon, there will be no future for my people. You are here because you have what we need. Your kind and mine are compatible. Jack swallowed hard. He didn't like the way this was going. And if I say no? Lathera's gaze didn't waver. You don't understand the stakes. I don't want to force you, but I must protect my people. If we cannot breed, we will be hunted and wiped out by our enemies. You are not just helping me. You are saving my entire race. Jack felt a chill run down his spine. This wasn't just about him anymore. There was a much larger game at play here, one he didn't fully understand yet. But saying no might mean condemning an entire species to extinction. Please, Jack, Lathera said, her voice softer now, almost pleading. I know this is strange for you, but without your help, we are doomed. Jack didn't know what to say. He felt the weight of the situation pressing down on him. What had he gotten himself into? As he looked at Lathera, her glowing eyes full of desperation, he realized that the choice he made here could change everything, for her people and for him. Escape or stay? Jack's mind raced as he stood in front of Lathera. The strange alien girl had just told him her people needed his help to survive. She wasn't just asking him to help in a normal way. She wanted him to save her race by breeding with her. It was too much, too fast. Jack had no idea how to process this. His first instinct was to run. He needed to get off this planet, away from this impossible situation. I can't do this, he said, taking a step back. His heart pounded in his chest, and his mind screamed for him to leave. He had no idea what else could be waiting for him if he stayed. Lathera watched him, her glowing eyes calm but intense. You can't run, Jack. This is bigger than you. You may not want to help, but you were brought here for a reason. The universe works in strange ways. Jack shook his head. No, I'm just an explorer. I don't belong here. I need to leave, he insisted, backing away from the glowing pool and the ancient chamber. Without waiting for her response, Jack turned and sprinted back toward his ship. His legs moved fast, adrenaline pushing him forward. He needed to get back to the safety of his ship, fly away, and forget this strange planet ever existed. But as he neared the entrance to the ruins, something strange happened. The ground around him shifted, and the walls seemed to ripple. Suddenly, the path he had just walked through wasn't there anymore. In its place was a dead end, blocked by large stones that hadn't been there moments before. Jack stopped in his tracks, breathing heavily. What the hell? Lathera's voice echoed in his mind. You can't leave, Jack. I told you, this is your destiny. My people's survival depends on you. The planet knows it too. Jack turned to see Lathera standing calmly behind him, her expression unchanged. He hadn't seen her follow him, but somehow she was already there. You're doing this? He asked, his voice shaky. The planet responds to my will, Lathera said simply. It can sense your hesitation. You cannot escape unless I allow it. But I don't want to keep you here as a prisoner. I only want you to understand how important this is. Jack felt a rush of frustration and fear. This was madness. He couldn't just accept this strange alien's demands. But the reality of his situation started to sink in. The planet wasn't letting him leave, and Lathera clearly had control over it. He was trapped. He took a deep breath, trying to calm himself. So what now? You're just going to force me to stay here until I do what you want. Lathera shook her head softly. No, Jack, I won't force you. But you must see the truth. If you leave, my people will die. If you stay, you can save us. The choice is yours, but you have to face it. Jack's heart sank. This was no ordinary mission, and there was no easy way out. He looked at Lathera, her eyes still glowing with both power and desperation, and realized he had no idea what he was going to do. The truth about Lathera's people. Jack leaned against the cold stone wall of the ancient ruins, his mind still reeling. He had tried to escape, but the planet itself had blocked his path. Lathera had made it clear. There was no leaving until he faced the truth. But he wasn't ready to accept it, not yet. Lathera stood a few steps away, her glowing eyes watching him closely. She knew he was struggling to understand, and for the first time, she seemed a little softer, less commanding. I don't want to frighten you, Jack, she said, her voice still echoing in his mind. But you need to know the truth about my people before you decide. Jack sighed, feeling cornered. Fine. Tell me your story. Maybe it'll make sense, because right now, none of this feels real. Lathera nodded and walked slowly toward the glowing pool in the center of the chamber. Jack followed her cautiously, still unsure of what to believe. She stopped at the edge of the pool and knelt down, placing her hand over the surface. The water rippled and began to glow even brighter. My people, the Terran, were once powerful, Lathera began, her voice calm and steady. We were explorers, much like your kind. We traveled across the stars, seeking knowledge and understanding. But then, we encountered a great enemy, a race known as the Exarchath. As she spoke, the water in the pool shimmered, and images began to form. Jack saw visions of tall, proud beings with glowing eyes, much like Lathera. They stood on a beautiful planet, surrounded by advanced technology and lush landscapes. But then the images changed. Dark shapes appeared, alien ships, sharp and menacing, attacking the Terran. The Exarchath were conquerors, Lathera continued. They wanted to dominate every race they encountered. When they found us, they saw our strength as a threat. They waged war against us, and for years we fought back. But we couldn't win. Their weapons were too powerful. Jack watched as the images showed the Terran cities burning, their people being hunted down. He could feel the sorrow in Lathera's voice, the pain of a people who had lost everything. In their final attack, the Exarchath did something even worse than killing us, Lathera said, her tone darkening. They changed us. They used a biological weapon that altered our DNA, making it impossible for us to reproduce on our own. We could no longer create life with each other. Our species was doomed to extinction unless we could find other compatible beings. Jack felt a chill run through him. It all started to make sense. The desperation, the strange request. Lathera's people were trapped in a genetic curse, unable to continue their race without help from others. Is that why you need me? Jack asked quietly. Because I'm compatible. Lathera nodded, standing up and facing him. Yes, your DNA can save us. We've searched the galaxy for centuries, looking for those who could help. You are one of the few. Without you, we cannot survive. Jack's mind spun with the weight of her words. This wasn't just about one alien girl asking for help. This was about an entire species fighting for survival. The pressure on him felt crushing, but at the same time, he couldn't help but feel sympathy for her. Lathera took a step closer, her eyes filled with emotion. I don't want to force you, Jack. I just want you to understand why this is so important. My people are counting on me. And now, I'm counting on you. Jack swallowed hard, the gravity of the situation sinking in. He had come to this planet thinking it was just another mission. But now he was faced with an impossible choice, one that could decide the future of an entire race. New enemies arrive. Just as Jack began to absorb the weight of Lathera's story, the ground beneath them trembled. A low, distant rumble echoed through the ancient ruins. Jack's heart jumped. He glanced at Lathara, who had suddenly gone tense. Her glowing eyes widened in alarm. "What's happening?" Jack asked, his voice tight with fear. Lathara's face hardened, her usual calm replaced with urgency. "They've found us," she whispered, her voice filled with dread. "The Exarchath are here." Jack's stomach sank. The Exarchath, the very enemies who had destroyed Lathara's people and cursed them to extinction. And now they were here, hunting them. His mind raced, trying to figure out how they had been discovered. He hadn't seen anything in the sky when he landed, no sign of danger. But it was clear now that this planet wasn't as hidden as Lathara had hoped. "We have to move," Lathara said, turning sharply toward the exit. "They won't stop until we're dead. They know we're still trying to survive." Jack felt his pulse quicken as the rumbling grew louder. He followed her, sprinting through the narrow passageways of the ruins. As they ran, he caught glimpses of the sky through cracks in the ancient walls. Dark, jagged ships descended from the clouds, black as shadows and covered in sharp, angular designs. They looked like predators, ready to tear apart anything in their path. "Those are the Exarchath?" Jack asked, breathless as he followed Lathara through the maze of corridors. She nodded grimly. "Yes, they destroyed our homeworld and now hunt us across the galaxy. They want to ensure that none of us survive. If we don't escape, they'll kill us both." The sense of danger became more real with each passing second. Jack's earlier worries about Lathara's request now seemed distant. His survival instincts kicked in, and all he could think about was getting out of here alive. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed through the ruins. The ground shook violently, and Jack was thrown off balance, stumbling into a wall. Dust and debris rained down from above as the ancient structures began to crumble under the force of the Exarchath attack. "They're bombing the ruins," Jack shouted, coughing through the dust. Lathara grabbed his arm, pulling him to his feet. "We need to reach the underground tunnels. They won't be able to find us there. Hurry." Together, they ran through the collapsing ruins, the sound of explosions getting closer. Jack's heart pounded in his chest, fear driving him forward. He had faced danger before, but nothing like this. The Exarchath were relentless, their attacks swift and merciless. Just as they reached an old hidden passageway leading underground, a blinding light filled the sky. Jack glanced back and saw one of the enemy ships hovering above them, its weapons charging for a direct hit. "We won't make it," Jack shouted, panic rising in his voice. Lathara's glowing eyes flared with determination. "We will." She raised her hand, and for a moment, the air around them shimmered. Suddenly, a force field appeared, surrounding them just as the ship's weapons fired. The energy blast collided with the shield, shaking the ground but holding strong. Jack stared in disbelief. How did you do that?" Lathara didn't answer, her face strained with effort. "I can only hold it for a short time. We need to keep moving." The moment the blast subsided, they dove into the underground tunnel, the entrance collapsing behind them as Lathara's force field faded. They were safe for now, hidden in the darkness of the tunnel. But Jack knew that Exarchath wouldn't give up so easily. Breathing heavily, Jack looked at Lathara, his mind racing. What now? Lathara's eyes glowed faintly in the dark, filled with both fear and resolve. "Now we fight back. It's the only way we survive." The chase. The underground tunnel was cold and dark, the only light coming from the faint glow of Lathara's eyes. Jack's heart pounded as they raced through the narrow passage, the sounds of explosions still echoing above. The Exarchath were relentless, and Jack knew they wouldn't stop until they had destroyed everything. And everyone on this planet. "We can't keep running forever," Jack said, his breath heavy as he tried to keep up with Lathara. "We don't need to," Lathara replied, her voice calm but determined. "There's a hidden exit at the end of these tunnels. It leads to the mountains, where we can lose them. They won't be able to track us there. Jack wasn't so sure. The XRCAF ships had sophisticated technology. He had seen them in action, their ships moving with deadly precision. But right now, he didn't have any better options. He had to trust Lathera, even if everything inside him screamed to get off this cursed planet as fast as possible. As they ran, Jack's thoughts raced just as quickly. The weight of Lathera's story still pressed down on him. The Terran people had been nearly wiped out by the XRCAF. And now, they were hunting the last survivors. Lathera needed him, not just to help her people survive, but to fight this enemy that had already taken so much from her. Suddenly, the ground shook violently. Jack stumbled but caught himself on the rough wall of the tunnel. The vibrations were getting stronger. It was clear the XRCAF had found a way to track them underground. "They're coming," Jack said, his voice filled with urgency. Lathera's eyes flickered with worry. "We're close to the exit. We just need a little more time." But Jack wasn't sure they had any time left. A loud screeching sound echoed through the tunnel, followed by the unmistakable hum of something mechanical. Jack turned his head and saw it, a small, sleek drone hovering behind them, its red eyes glowing menacingly. "They've sent drones," Jack shouted, panic rising in his chest. Without hesitation, Lathera raised her hand, and a pulse of energy shot from her fingers, slamming into the drone. It exploded in a shower of sparks, but Jack knew there would be more. "They're getting closer," Lathera said, her face tense. "We need to move faster." They pushed forward, running as fast as they could through the narrow, winding tunnels. The sounds of more drones echoed behind them. The mechanical whir growing louder. Jack's lungs burned from the effort, but he couldn't stop. If the drones caught them, it would be over. Finally, they'd reached the end of the tunnel. A small, hidden hatch led out into the open air. Lathera quickly pulled it open, and they climbed out into a rocky valley surrounded by towering mountains. The air was cold, the sky dark with storm clouds. "We made it," Jack said, gasping for breath. But Lathera shook her head, her expression still grim. "We're not safe yet." The sound of engines filled the air. Jack looked up and saw the XRCAF ships overhead, scanning the ground with beams of light. They had found the exit. "There's no way we can outrun them," Jack muttered, fear gripping him again. Lathera turned to him, her glowing eyes filled with determination. "We won't need to outrun them. Follow me." Before Jack could respond, Lathera darted toward the mountains, moving with surprising speed and agility. Jack followed, his mind racing. The chase wasn't over. It had only just begun. As they weaved through the rocky terrain, dodging the searchlights from the ships above, Jack realized something. Lathera wasn't just running to survive. She had a plan, and whatever it was, he knew it was their only chance to escape the relentless XRCAF once and for all. For now, all he could do was trust her and keep running. The breeding ritual. After a grueling run through the rocky terrain, Jack and Lathera found a hidden cave nestled between two towering mountains. The entrance was small and almost invisible among the boulders. Once inside, the darkness enveloped them, but Lathera's eyes provided a soft glow, lighting the way. "Are we safe here?" Jack asked, his heart still racing from the chase. Lathera nodded, but her expression was serious. "For now. The XRCAF won't find us immediately, but we have little time. We need to prepare." Jack's mind was still spinning from everything he had experienced. Prepare for what? Lathera took a deep breath, her glowing eyes fixing on him. For the breeding ritual. Jack felt a rush of confusion and dread. "You're serious? Now, after everything that's happened?" "Yes," Lathera replied, her voice firm. "We must do it to save my people. The longer we wait, the less chance we have of surviving. It's not just about us. It's about the future of the Terran." He could see the determination in her eyes, but a knot of fear tightened in his stomach. "What exactly does this ritual involve?" Lathera stepped closer, her expression softening. In our culture, the ritual is sacred. It connects two beings, allowing us to share our strengths and create new life. I promise it won't harm you. It is an ancient tradition meant to honor both our species. Jack hesitated. The idea felt overwhelming. He was just an explorer, thrown into a situation he couldn't comprehend. But he also knew Lathura was right. The longer they delayed, the more risk they faced. He had already seen the devastation the Exarchath could cause, and he couldn't let fear hold him back. "Okay," he said finally, swallowing hard. "What do we need to do?" Lathura's eyes brightened with relief. "Thank you, Jack. We must find the center of the cave. There I can create the energy needed for the ritual." Together, they moved deeper into the cave. As they walked, the air felt charged with energy, and Jack sensed something ancient and powerful about the place. They arrived at a circular chamber, the walls shimmering with strange symbols that seemed to pulse with life. Lathura raised her arms, and the symbols on the walls began to glow brighter. "We need to focus on our connection. It will enhance the energy flow and allow us to begin the ritual." Jack watched in awe as the room filled with light, the energy swirling around them. He felt a strange pull, as if the very essence of the cave was alive and responsive to their presence. "Now join me," Lathura said, extending her hand. "We must stand together." Jack took her hand, feeling warmth radiate from her skin. As they stood close, the energy intensified, wrapping around them like a gentle embrace. He could feel Lathura's heartbeat, synchronized with his own. "Close your eyes," she instructed softly. "Focus on the bond we're creating." Jack followed her lead, closing his eyes and trying to calm his racing thoughts. He could feel the energy flowing between them, a connection that went beyond physical touch. It was as if they were merging their very souls, sharing their hopes and fears. Images flooded his mind, visions of Lathura's people, their vibrant cities, their rich culture. He felt their pain, their loss, and their desperate need for survival. And with each passing moment, Jack realized how important this was, not just for Lathura, but for a whole species hanging by a thread. Lathura's voice came to him, clear and powerful. "We will create life together, Jack. This is our chance to change the fate of my people." With those words, he felt a surge of energy unlike anything he had ever experienced. It filled the chamber, wrapping around them like a cocoon, bright and warm. Jack opened his eyes, looking into Lathura's glowing gaze, and in that moment, he understood the true meaning of their union. They were more than just two beings. They were a bridge between two worlds. As the energy swirled around them, Jack knew there was no turning back. This was their path forward, a chance to create hope from despair. The final battle. The cave was alive with energy, a pulsating force that connected Jack and Lathura in a way he never thought possible. As the ritual deepened, they felt their spirits intertwine, igniting a powerful connection. But even in this moment of unity, a dark shadow loomed outside. The Exarchath ships continued to scour the area, their cold mechanical eyes searching for any sign of the Terran. Jack knew they wouldn't stop until they found Lathura and ended her people once and for all. Time was running out. Suddenly, the ground shook, and the cave trembled as if sensing the impending danger. Jack opened his eyes, breaking the connection with Lathura. "We have to prepare for a fight," he said, urgency flooding his voice. Lathura nodded, determination etched across her face. "You're right. We can't let them destroy us again. I need to harness the energy from the ritual. It will give us strength." Jack watched as Lathura closed her eyes, focusing on the energy that still flowed around them. The symbols on the cave walls glowed brighter, and he could feel a surge of power building within her. He didn't know how much time they had, but he felt a rush of adrenaline as the reality of their situation set in. "Let's make this quick," Jack said, glancing toward the cave entrance. The distant sounds of engines and footsteps echoed ominously. They were getting closer. With a final breath, Lathura opened her eyes, now shining with fierce energy. I'm ready. Together, we can drive them back. Jack felt a surge of confidence as they moved to the mouth of the cave, standing side by side. As they peered outside, the sight was shocking. The Exarchath had landed their ships, and dozens of warriors had begun to disembark, their dark forms moving with calculated precision. "We can't let them get inside," Jack whispered, tightening his grip on a rock he picked up as an improvised weapon. Lathera raised her hand, and a shield of energy flickered into existence around them. "This will protect us for now, but it won't last long. We must act quickly." With that, they charged into battle. Jack swung the rock at the nearest Exarchath warrior, connecting with a satisfying crunch. The creature staggered back, surprised by the strength of the blow. But there were many more coming, and Jack could feel the weight of the fight pressing down on him. Lathera stepped forward, her hands glowing with energy. "Feel my power, Jack. We can push them back." She unleashed a wave of energy that knocked several Exarchath off their feet, sending them tumbling to the ground. Jack felt a rush of courage, with Lathera fighting by his side. He believed they could win. He charged forward, dodging attacks and striking at the enemies with newfound strength. The Terran's energy flowed through him, enhancing his abilities in ways he never imagined. But the Exarchath weren't easily defeated. They regrouped quickly, launching a coordinated attack against Jack and Lathera. The sound of blaster fire filled the air, and Jack could see the dark shapes closing in on them. "We need to retreat," Jack shouted, realizing they were outnumbered. Lathera nodded, her face set in determination. "To the mountains. We can use the terrain to our advantage." They turned and sprinted toward the mountains, the Exarchath hot on their heels. The rocky landscape was difficult to navigate, but Jack and Lathera worked together, using the rocks and elevation to create barriers between themselves and their pursuers. As they reached a higher ledge, Jack turned to face the approaching enemies. He grabbed a loose rock and hurled it down, hitting one of the Exarchath warriors squarely in the chest. The creature fell, momentarily stunned. "Now, Lathera," Jack called, urging her to unleash her power again. With a fierce cry, Lathera summoned a blast of energy that swept across the battlefield. The Exarchath staggered back, caught off guard by the sheer force. Jack seized the opportunity to push forward, taking down another enemy while Lathera maintained the shield around them. As the battle raged on, Jack felt the weight of their fight, his heart pounding, his muscles straining. But he also felt the strength of their bond, the connection that had grown between them during the ritual. Together, they were unstoppable. With one final surge of energy, Lathera and Jack combined their powers in a brilliant explosion of light. The shockwave sent the Exarchath flying, and for a moment, everything fell silent. They stood together, breathing heavily, surrounded by the remnants of their battle. Jack looked at Lathera, relief washing over him. "We did it," he said, hope flickering in his heart. But as the dust settled, they knew this battle was only the beginning. The war against the Exarchath was far from over. Together, they had fought bravely, but now, they needed to find a way to end the threat once and for all. A new future. The dust from the final battle began to settle, revealing the aftermath of the fierce struggle. Jack and Lathera stood at the edge of the rocky ledge, their bodies weary but their spirits high. The Exarchath had been defeated, for now. The energy they had created together had pushed back the enemy, but they knew this victory was only temporary. Lathera turned to Jack, her glowing eyes still bright with determination. "We have a chance now. We can gather my people and prepare for the next fight. We must be ready for whatever comes next." Jack nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. "But we also need a plan. The Exarchath won't give up easily. They'll be back, and we need to be stronger." Together, they descended the mountain, moving cautiously through the rocky landscape. They had to find the surviving Terran and unite their people for what lay ahead. As they approached the valley below, the sun began to rise, casting a warm golden light across the terrain. It was a new day, and with it, a glimmer of hope. Once they reached the valley, Lathera used her energy to send out a signal, a call for any Terran who remained. The soft glow of her power pulsed through the air, sending a wave of reassurance to those who could feel it. Jack watched as the light traveled, a beacon in the darkness, guiding the lost toward them. Before long, figures began to emerge from the trees and rocky outcrops. Terran survivors, their faces worn but filled with hope. Lathera stepped forward to greet them, her voice steady and clear. "We have fought back against the Exarchath, but our fight is not over. We need to unite and prepare for what is to come." The Terran gathered around, their eyes filled with gratitude and determination. They listened as Lathera shared the story of their battle, the sacrifices made, and the strength they had found together. Jack felt a sense of belonging as he stood among them. He wasn't just an outsider anymore. He was part of something larger, part of a community fighting for its survival. Days passed as they regrouped and planned. Jack and Lathera worked side by side, forging strategies and training the Terran warriors in combat. He taught them how to use makeshift weapons and tactics that he had learned during his travels. In return, they shared their ancient knowledge and culture, showing him the beauty of their world and their history. The bond between Jack and Lathera grew stronger with each passing day. They discovered a shared vision for the future, one where the Terran could thrive, free from the threat of the Exarchath. Jack felt a sense of purpose, a desire to protect Lathera and her people. It was no longer just about survival. It was about creating a future filled with hope. As they trained and prepared, news came that the Exarchath were regrouping. They had not given up. With this knowledge, Jack felt the urgency increase. "We need to strike first," he suggested during a gathering of the Terran leaders. "If we can show them that we are united and strong, we can push them back for good." Lathera agreed, her eyes shining with determination. "We must take the fight to them. We have the power of our ancestors and the strength of our unity. Together, we will not be defeated." With their plan in place, Jack and the Terran set out toward the Exarchath's last known position. As they marched through the landscape, the energy of their unity filled the air. They were no longer just a few survivors. They were a force to be reckoned with. Finally, they reached the battlefield where the Exarchath had made their camp. As they prepared to launch their attack, Jack looked at Lathera beside him. He could see the strength in her eyes and felt a surge of hope. They were ready to fight not just for survival, but for a new future, one where the Terran could reclaim their home. With a fierce battle cry, they charged forward, united in purpose and strength. Together, they would create a new beginning, a future where hope could thrive against the darkness.